From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Colombian presidential hopeful Ivan Duque has warned he would consider ending the peace talks with the National Liberation Army, or ELN, if elected in this Sunday's runoff. Talking to local media, Duque said the dialogues currently underway in Cuba will continue only if the ELN agrees to end extortion and drug trafficking activities. He also said the armed group must withdraw to one of the reintegration camps set up for the FARC after they reached a peace agreement with the government in 2016. He said that if these conditions were not met, even with a bilateral ceasefire, the peace talks would end. Meanwhile, leftist candidate Gustavo Petro was endorsed by a group of retired police officers who are calling on him to push forward with the peace talks with the ELN and to protect the accords reached 2 years ago with the FARC. Petro defied all odds to become the first leftist candidate in Colombia's modern history to reach the second round of a presidential election.
We must not lose this peace. Dr. Gustavo Petro, you must take it forward. After the great step that was taken with the peace agreements, we have to face the post-conflict situation.
Still in Colombia, the governor of Antioquia has accused the managing company of the Hidroituango hydroelectric project of hiding information about the possible collapse of the dam. Governor Luis Perez said the project was inspected by international experts who explained the collapse might cause a massive mudslide that could become the worst in the history of Colombia. 4 municipalities of Antioquia have been declared in emergency, and 25,000 people were forced to leave the area after heavy floods. 130,000 residents are still at risk. The Hidroituango Dam is the largest hydroelectric project in the country. Presidential campaigns in Mexico have entered their final stage. The leader in polls, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has received many attacks from other candidates who seem to be stuck in second and third place.
The main goal of Andrés Manuel López Obrador is to rescue the energy industry. The leftist candidate is still ahead in the polls and the favorite among voters. His 20 to 30 points advantage has turned him into the main target for attacks. Conservative candidate Ricardo Anaya accuses him of granting millionaire contracts to a construction company when he was the head of Mexico City's government.
That was legally done. We deeply analyzed the situation to decide if the company was the best option to take charge of the task.
However, Anaya didn't look very good after reports link him to money laundering. These reports have haunted him since the start of his campaign.
We must end the great corruption in our country.
José Antonio Meade, running in last place in the polls, has also attacked the leading candidate who might become Mexico's new president on July 1st. Without any proof, Meade has said that López Obrador misused earthquake victims' money in 2017.
For now, we think that at least half of the resources were funneled to benefit Morena party members.
Meanwhile, the Workers' Party warned about possible electoral fraud.
They will commit state fraud by seizing public funds. Funds from every public program will go towards vote buying.
There is great concern among those who support the continuity of neoliberal ways. Apart from the presidency, the project led by López Obrador seems to be the virtual winner of at least 5 out of 9 region governments and a big part of the seats in the Senate and Congress.
A national dialogue promoted by Nicaragua's government and Catholic bishops is due to restart in the coming hours after being suspended on May 23rd. A violent campaign to remove President Daniel Ortega has resulted in 150 deaths so far, according to unofficial figures, and has injured hundreds more. On Thursday, the opposition called for a 24-hour strike, which they said was to support the dialogue. The Catholic clergy is expected to publicly unveil both their mediation offer and Ortega's response, something the country has been anticipating for a week.
This is what 90% of the Nicaraguan schools look like. Absolute normality for a national strike day. At this school, the students continue as usual with their routine.
We are well aware that only through education will we be able to build a path of peace in Nicaragua, and all the families should have this idea of sharing, working together and moving forward. We, as a public institution, work for our people. We are following this motto: yes to education, no to the strike.
Small and medium companies started working early in the morning as they take the risk in hopes for dialogue rather than missing one day of work.
I need to work to live. If I don't work, I don't eat. The little that I sell, I use it for paying bills. We are living under a tough economic situation. I cannot afford to stay at home.
Analyst Adolfo Pastran says that most of the Nicaraguan population is living under high social stress and uncertainty. The strike is another factor that goes further to the political message.
This economic boycott especially affects the small companies, artisans and self-employed workers, who are the people that have been suffering in the crisis, unlike big companies that have enough resources to face it. This will certainly have a negative impact when it comes to job creation and the stability of small companies, most of them owned by families, so the strike is going to hurt the stability of the country and its economy.
The Episcopal Conference called for national dialogue on this Friday, June 15th, at Our Lady of Fatima Church.
President Nicolás Maduro met with incoming Vice President Delcy Rodriguez and 11 new ministers. He indicated that most of the new ministers are young revolutionary women. Maduro said the renewal of the cabinet is meant to boost the economy and confront the economic and financial war led by the United States and its regional allies against Venezuela. He added that the historic victory in the May 20th election made a new start essential.
El equipo debe cohesionarse cada vez más.
Our team has to be united. We have to answer to the people any way they need. I have asked every minister during this first meeting to have a spirit of renewal for this new task and to immediately restructure every ministry. I have asked them, as well, to work using the dynamic methods that Commander Hugo Chavez taught us through the missions.
The Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, met on Thursday with the International Monetary Fund's Managing Director, Christine Lagarde, and other officials. Barbados is in discussions with the IMF as part of the Prime Minister's emergency plan to tackle the country's massive debt. Newly elected Mottley presented her first budget earlier this week. It kept many of her promises to improve services in spite of the IMF's proposals for cuts. We'll take a short break now, but join us again after this video from our multimedia team. Welcome back. Argentinian President Mauricio Macri, despite opposing the abortion bill, congratulated the country a day after the historic vote at the lower house approved the law. Macri, who had said he's personally against it, celebrated what he called a respectful and tolerant debate. The bill to legalize abortion during the first 14 weeks of pregnancy divided the Argentinian society, as well as Macri's allies and the opposition. Now the Senate has to ratify the law that includes abortion in the free public health system.
Han dado un debate histórico.
They have held a historic debate, proper for democracy. We have been able to settle our differences with respect, with tolerance, listening to the other and understanding that the path of dialogue is the one that will strengthen our future. So my congratulations to all, knowing that this debate continues now in the Senate.
Así que mis felicitaciones para todos.
We spoke with Aldana Valles, a member of Economía Feminista, an organization that promotes women's rights in Argentina. We asked her what will happen when the bill goes to the Senate.
It can take months for the bill to reach the Senate. First, it has to be debated in commissions, the same way it was debated inside the lower house. From Economía Feminista, what we launched in February was a tracker that, well, it helped us mapping the vote before today's vote, and that way we were able to map it and to know every deputy's position about this bill. So we are now working towards doing the same work with our senators' positions. So that's the thing we are now going to work.
Still in Argentina, workers' unions are planning a 24-hour national strike to stand against President Macri's economic policies. They demand a salary increase and union rights.
Now more than ever, citizens are trying to have faith in the outcome of their struggles. People are feeling empowered after the approval of the abortion law in the lower house of Congress. Union representatives have said that they will take stronger actions if the government of the Cambiemos alliance doesn't listen to their demands.
We stand for our rights, for a salary increase of 27%. Today, the government published the details of the brutal adjustments that will take hold of our country after the deal with the IMF. Inflation will reach 27%, but the government wants to increase salaries by only 15%. That means they want to take away 12% of our salaries. They also announced they will add new tariffs due to our currency's devaluation.
The national strike will affect cargo transport and garbage collecting, as well as activities in school, healthcare centers, and public companies.
We're tired but excited about our fight. More women are supporting this every day, and that's important because when the IMF interferes in countries, they take away a lot of people's rights.
It is important to take to the streets because this is a time of resistance. Also, we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of the university reform.
June will be full of protests against Macri's measures and in favor of Argentines' rights. The 24-hour general strike on June 25th will be supported by workers' unions and precedes the truckers' union strike set for the 26th and 27th of this month.
We are here today at Plaza de Mayo because it's our duty to tell the rest of our people that adjustments are taking place in Chubut and will spread along the whole country. But we also want to tell them that the workers will strike against it.
Organizers have announced that they have planned another day of action on July 9th to defend Argentina's economic independence. Protests will be supported by unions who hope their complaints will be listened to and spread around the whole country.
The Broad Front for the People's Fight, or FALPO, and other social organizations in the Dominican Republic held protests to demand justice and better social policies.
Protesters demanded justice after the murder of a social leader, Vladimir Lantigua, calling for a labor strike.
This strike is being convened to protest the death of our comrade Vladimir Lantigua. Our demands for the government include a regional hospital, a road from Mocriz to Rio San Juan, a bridge in Ugamba, and 24-hour access to electricity for the entire municipality.
Vladimir Lantigua Baldera was 29 years old. He led the Broad Front for the People's Fight until last August, when he was shot in the head during a regional strike. Witnesses have placed responsibility of the murder on agents of the National Police.
We have a careless, indifferent, arrogant government, and even worse, a repressive government that instead of working on a solution, it simply unleashes security forces on the people in order to silence us.
The call was made by various social organizations.
We support the petitions, the claims and the needs of the people, but we know we have to change the approach we have used for many years. We hope that during these protests, we can avoid clashes with the police.
A day before the protest, the city of San Francisco was heavily militarized.
We ask that high-ranking ministers come from Santo Domingo so we may have a dialogue. We appeal to the goodwill of everyone involved so that we may improve the condition of this entire region.
Protesters say they won't stop their fight until they are heard. The community hopes that the government will err on the side of truth and justice.
Panama's former president, Ricardo Martinelli, has given his first impromptu interview from prison, yelling to reporters, "They want to kill me." During the interview on Wednesday, Martinelli went on to accuse the Panamanian government of not following the legal procedure for his case. He claimed his legal rights were violated during the extradition process and said authorities took him like a dog from Florida. Martinelli was extradited from the United States earlier this week, accused of embezzling and espionage on over 150 political opponents and journalists. Supporters of former President Rafael Correa denounced police repression during a protest outside the parliament on Thursday. This came after the body declared a case inadmissible which tried to link Correa to an alleged kidnapping in Colombia in 2012. Citizens' Revolution Assembly members said that tear gas was used against them by police. They also denounced political maneuvers to coerce lawmakers to vote in favor of a trial when they have no evidence and based on political persecution against the former president.
The decision was completely legal, and under the Constitution, there are no articles that allow an authorization for a former president.
We stand in solidarity with the lawmakers from the Alianza País bloc who were coerced into changing their votes.
People in the Argentinian city of Rosario paid tribute to revolutionary Ernesto Che Guevara on what it would have been his 90th birthday. The city organized different activities on Thursday to mark this special date. Che Guevara's brother, Juan Martín Guevara de la Serna, attended a conference chaired by former Uruguayan President José Pepe Mujica. The socialist revolutionary was executed 50 years ago in Bolivia. Following his death, Che Guevara became an international symbol for revolution and left-wing ideals.
The biggest homage that can be made to a revolutionary is to deepen their revolutionary thinking at the service of the times we are living.
In Bolivia, 3 historical burial towers of the indigenous Aymara people were restored in the Cala Uta site in the surroundings of Lake Titicaca. The initiative was prompted by the Bolivian government as an effort to conserve the country's heritage and to attract tourism. The Aymarans have been settled in the Andean plateau of Lake Titicaca since pre-Columbian times. Its population is divided between western Bolivia, southern Peru, and northern Chile, with an estimated population of over 2 million people. Despite being conquered first by the Incas and then by the Spanish, they have been able to preserve their culture during centuries. Archaeologists in Peru have discovered over 100 child skeletons from a mass human sacrifice in the coastal city of Trujillo, north of the country. The remains are believed to be 1,000 years old. The discovery comes just weeks after 140 child skeletons were found at the same location, making it the world's biggest site of child sacrifice. Historians say people from the Chemu culture, prevalent during 900 AD, performed mass human sacrifices, believing they could avert the difficult weather conditions. We'll take one last short break, but join us after this video from our multimedia team.
The major reason why we are here is just we want to unveil our own World Cup behind bars.
Now to the World Cup. Uruguay has opened its first match in the World Cup in Russia with a last-minute victory over Egypt. Jose Maria Jimenez scored for the first Latin American goal of the tournament and the only goal of the match in the 90th minute in Ekaterinburg. Uruguay was the first Latin American team to play in this World Cup in Group A. Egypt's star player, the Liverpool striker Mohamed Salah, was kept out of the game by injury. With the 1-0 win over Egypt, Uruguay will pick up 3 points. And in other games, Morocco, returning to the World Cup after 20 years, is now playing its first game against Iran in St. Petersburg in Group B. The score at halftime is 0-0. Also in this group, Cristiano Ronaldo and Portugal will have a difficult start facing Spain in the city of Sochi. In an exclusive interview with Telesur in Russia, Bolivian President Evo Morales spoke with football legend Diego Armando Maradona and Víctor Hugo Morales for our special FIFA World Cup show, De la Mano del 10, the World Cup according to Maradona.
First of all, I am extremely surprised by the great organization. It has been impeccable. I want to greet President Putin for his fantastic work, for everybody's work.
That's true.
For them being so hospitable, for being so generous. I was walking down the street and they used to applaud me, full of Latin Americans, for Ecuadorians, Colombians, Panamanians, Peruvians, Argentinians. It was impressive.
Yes.
In reality, football is not only passion, but it is also the passion of the people.
That's right. The history was different before. We believed that Russians were going to treat us, they were going to look down on us, but it's been the opposite. They're all nice, it's all respect, and each person is wearing their shirts, each one of them is respected, we're being applauded.
Thursday marked 1 year since the Grenfell Tower fire in London, a disaster which claimed the lives of 72 people. Here's a report by Pablo Navarrete on this tragedy and what followed.
Indignation and demands for justice marked the first anniversary of the Grenfell Tower fire, a building that was used for social housing. Some 72 people lost their lives in the tragedy, the worst fire in the United Kingdom since the Second World War.
At the end of the day, there's something really horrible that's happened. The people who survived that fire and people who lost members of their family within that fire have had to become campaigners for fire safety and have actually been the leadership of a national campaign to remove these dangerous materials from buildings. That is scandalous.
1 year after the tragedy, there is unease amongst members and organisations of the local community due to the fact that there have been no arrests as a result of the various investigations underway. nor has the material used in the building's exterior cladding, which contributed to the rapid spread of the fire, been banned.
It's not fair at all that we're standing here today, all of us, to say goodbye to people that shouldn't have died the way they did. And, you know, all I want to say is that we love everybody that's supporting us. We say thank you to everybody that's come here today to support.
In the days preceding the first anniversary, British Prime Minister Theresa May visited the Grenfell Tower site and admitted that her initial response was not good enough. In the days after the tragedy, May faced widespread public criticism for avoiding direct interaction with the fire survivors and the local community.
Theresa May can come and shake hands and take selfies with whoever she wants. The fact is, until she's willing to stand up to corporate power in this country, we will not see a difference, and we will still see communities endangered by their governments who are merely serving as facilitators and conduits of transnational corporate power. If you want to be angry at foreigners, be angry at the foreign companies that are controlling your government.
When you walk through the area, it is full of murals, flowers and other tributes to the tragedy, and there is a real sense of a community coming together after such a tragic event. Talking to the locals, you also sense a strong determination to fight for justice. Pablo Navarrete, Telesur, London.
And just before we end this show, a reminder that you can see that special World Cup program with Diego Maradona, De la mano del 10, the World Cup according to Maradona. It will air only on Telesur every night at these times, daily during the World Cup in Russia. So be sure to tune in for commentary on the day matches. And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But this and other stories you can find on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And be sure to follow us on social media as well, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.
Documentaries presents A Nation's Struggle Seeking Conciliation.
Creo que hay que distinguir entre la firma de un acuerdo, el silencio de los fusiles